It's really hard to start a band. I started the band. And finding members was very tough. I was playing a style of music.
Wait, so is this how it started? You started Periphery?
I started the band in like 2005. Wow. And I just, as I said, I wanted to just do a van tour. You know, I wanted to get. I was writing everything, and
I thought there'd be some crazy steps between that and so I did it.
well, no. But here's the thing: when you have a computer, you're like, well, I started a band. You know, I was making music. This is
because you can do all the parts.
Yeah, so
you're making music.
This is the interesting thing. Most bands before that time, most bands, if you wanted to write, you got to find musicians, get into a room, you jam, right?
Yeah, and find it.
I was composing, so I was writing all the parts out, and that's what I was saying. I wasn't a good enough I was playing drums, but I was like, I'm not good enough to perform the stuff I want to write. I need to find a drummer who's better than me, and I found a lot of drummers who are better than me, but it's a very technical and weird style of music. Now it's kind of ubiquitous, but like it requires quite a technical minded approach, and it was very weird. Just kind of in layman's terms, like it's oftentimes 4/4, but it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like anything but, and it sounds.
You stay on the offbeat or what?
It's like constant syncopation.
Oh,
or polymeters, like so like. It sounds like you're playing in 7 or 13 or something like that, but it's really over 4, and there's like a remainder bar so it neatly goes back to 4.
Yeah, but you pop it back, exactly.
Yeah.
See, this is very interesting to me. Musicians must love your music.
Yes, we're completely a musicians band. Like, and that's why it's tough that's why we're not that big a band, you know? But
That's interesting.
Like,
that's why you always say that. You're like, you've never heard my band.
Yeah,
and I was like,
no.
Why
like,
do you say? Why is that your first
if you're a
thing?
if you're a musician and you're like a nerdy musician, then I'd say, okay, maybe there's a chance you've heard us. But like, even if you're a musician, if you're like, yeah, I play like rock or like alternative or like, you know, indie, it's like you've probably never heard my band, you know. And it's not like saying like our music's like better or whatever. Like I don't even listen.
I didn't mean it like that either.
But like, but it's the stuff I enjoyed writing, you know. And it was kind of technical to play. It was hard to find members who could wrap their head. I remember like. So one of the oldest, actually now the oldest member. The band, the member who's been in the band the longest, other than me, Jake, was a worse guitarist than the other guy who was in the band at the time, like who was a shredder and he was incredible. But that guy couldn't wrap his head around what I was trying to do, and Jake could, you know. And Jake and it's like one of those things where like pure technique and talent did not actually matter. There's like some drummers that were incredible, like jazz kind of fusion drummers, and they just really struggled like with understanding what I was trying to do. Again, nowadays a dime a dozen. If we lost all our members, like it'd be easy to find replacements or whatever. But back then it was impossible, and I kept just auditioning. And like when I found like Jake, I was like, oh my god, like you understand, like holy shit,
you're in my brain.
Yes, like
you get it.
And I asked him to join, and he said no. I had to get him later.
Yeah, what a guy.
Yeah, like it took some convincing to
Thanks
get him
a lot,
to join.
Jerk.
Jerk, that's his name. No. But like, yeah, it took it. So there's that side, and then the other fun side is personalities and gelling. You know, went through 4 singers before we found our singer. Like, went through a few drummers. Like, and eventually we got a pretty stable lineup. And then the other thing, which I'm pretty happy about, is like we actually had. I posted on forums. I used to post. You remember forums?
Yeah, I used to spend a shit ton of time.
Yeah,
on forums.
so there's a lot of, like, the thing is like the kind of music I was into, like metal and like the kind of stuff I was playing was not cool. And as I said, like not many people listen to this kind of stuff or whatever. So very much like a car meet. You know how like when you go to a car meet, you just talk cars because you're like, oh, another human being I can talk about cars and not annoy.
Yeah, and
you
it's
know?
all in your face. So here we go.
And like if you talk to your friends, they're like, dude, just shut up about cars. Like I don't care. You know?
I see your point. Yeah.
Right. It was like that with metal. So like all of a sudden you have these forums where like everyone's stoked to be talking about these bands that you love, but no one in you're always like the metal guy in your group of friends. Right. No one cares, right? They're all just like, dude, shut up. Like, yeah, I get it. It's loud. It's wonderful. Let's do something fun, you know? So like it was a really cool way to like just bond with people like the same stuff. But I was posting my ideas up on these forums, and I almost didn't want to do that because I was so self-conscious because I thought all my stuff sucked. There's a very big distinction here to be made, which is I don't think I'm a very good musician.
Yeah.
But I love making music.
Yeah.
I don't have to be good at something to enjoy it. I don't think I'm that good at driving, but I love it too. You know, so like it's the same thing. It's like
It's
I
possible you're very realistic.
I'm just
and you
very
don't want
realistic.
to overstep your. It seems like
I'm just
you're a
very-
very respectful person in general. I
yeah.
mean, you're
Well, I've
talking
seen
about
real
the climb.
talent. I've seen real talent, so I know where I am. I don't think I suck, but I also don't think I'm good or anything like that. I think I'm okay.
But
I
is
think
it perhaps that you have seen the scale, so
Yeah.
you have a respect for it?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm with you then. Read the room.
Absolutely.
People don't have that skill anymore.
I mean, it's not a skill. It's just what I believe, and I'm a very stubborn person. So,
Right on.
you know,
Yeah,
So
I
you're not
love
going
it.
to convince me otherwise.
I love it.
But I know my place basically, right? Like I don't think I'm a particularly great guitarist. I don't particularly like the way I sound, but I love writing. I really, really enjoy that. And so I almost didn't share my stuff because I was listening to other stuff people were posting. I'm like, that's way better than mine. But I was like, whatever, I'll just post it, and if it sucks, then I'll just never post another song again.
Right.
But people are they reacted well generally, and then like, you know, some people didn't, but like generally people seem to like it, or enough people seem to like it to where I just keep posting. And I was very prolific because I was just like, this is a new thing. I can write by myself. So I just kept just uploading little ideas, whatever. And then before you know it, like there was a little bit of buzz around, you know, Bulb was what it was called at the time. Like that became my sort of like pseudonym and like side
Are we talking
project.
about a couple months, a couple years?
Yeah, this is over a couple of years.
That's
yeah.
what I figured. Okay.
And then
so
like
this is really a proper grassroots.
Yeah. And like what happened was like labels started to be like, okay, so there's a lot of buzz about this, but like, what is it? Is it a band or whatever? I'm like,
Can
well,
we even get this guy?
yeah, it's like, you know, so have you ever played a show? No. Have you ever on toured? No. So if you go on tour, how do we know your band's not going to break up? I don't know, you know? So like,
You're not bankable, but everybody loves you. Yeah.
so there's a weird thing where there was some hype. So we were getting record deals and offers, but they were all terrible. And I knew exactly what I wanted. Here's the thing that's a little different. At this, I mean, if you consider what a label really is, it's just a bank. Because if you try to make a record, and back in the day, like let's say we were going to put a record together, it would cost you like $250,000. What bank's going to give me that loan? Nobody.
No argument
But all
here.
of
I
a
love
sudden,
that.
I'm recording on my computer. I could do this shit for free. I'm paying for artwork. And like what they would do is they'd be like, okay, we're going to lend you $250,000 to put this out. And you're going to give us your masters as collateral. We're going to own your music. And you'll collect a percentage, you know, like anywhere from 11 to 19%, because we just gave you this interest-free loan.
Yeah.
You know, which if it fails, you don't have to pay back.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Not a terrible deal, right?
No.
But what happened at this point was like CDs were starting to not sell, and like the model was starting to fail. So they were starting to do these things called 360 deals, which were so predatory.
Yeah, we know
Where
all
they were
about
like,
that.
yeah. So for those who don't know,
There's another
basically-
thing called in perpetuity. They all go together.
Yeah. Oh, I always talk about this in the contract. I was like, this is lawyers in a nutshell, because the contract was in perpetuity in the universe.
Oh,
because,
yeah.
because the
Not even
solar
on this
system's
planet.
not enough, you know?
No, it's true. It's
Because
true.
hey, if they colonize Alpha Centauri, we need to have the rights. So
100%.
like, so I was just like, man, this lawyer speaks hilarious. And there was another phrase which was very sort of cryptic, which I believe was like needs to be commercially viable. So there was technically viable and commercially viable. Technically viable means 8 songs, 35 minutes or whatever. So you can't just turn in like, oh, it's like 10 songs, but it's like 3 minutes long.
100%.
There's our album.
Right.
You know?
You met
So-
the deliverables requirements, basically.
But commercially viable was completely just it basically allows them to shelve your album for no reason. You know, and that's
Because
a really
they say,
dangerous
oh, it's
thing.
not commercially viable
That's
right now.
a creative control clause.
Yeah.
That's where they get to say, well, we're going to need an extra chorus here or there, or we'll shelve your album. And you don't want that. So I started to talk to a lot of friends, and you know, a lot of friends who had made mistakes with their labels. It's like what to do, what to look out for, or whatever. So by the time we were starting to get these record deals, I was like, these are all bullshit, and I'm not fucking signing these. And it sucked. I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted a licensing deal, because I was like, there's no way that you guys are taking our album that we do everything for. We're delivering you a finished album with artwork and everything. You're going to put it on the shelves and you're going to own our masters?
not fair.
Like, are you insane?
No.
And they're like, well, you know, that's great. I understand your point, but no label is going to give you that deal. And I was like, all right, then we won't sign.
Have a nice day.
So we didn't sign for 3 years, and we were watching all of our peers and our friends getting signed, and it sucked. That was some of the hardest times, because it was like, man, like we're going nowhere fast. And it was like kind of a waiting game, but I was like, no, like, you know, I'd like written that first album. I basically did all the work, and I was like, there's no way that you're gonna tell me, like, you can rent this album from me, you can license it from me, but it will go back not to me but to the band. You know, it will go back to the band because you guys have not put any risk. This is just not fair any other way. And eventually, an LA label, Sumerian Records, who had sent us a deal from the beginning and was probably the most progressive in terms of the deals that they were offering, they were like, okay, we'll give you what you want.
Did you say Sumerian Records?
Yeah, Sumerian Records.
Like the Sumerians and the Mesopotamians?
Yeah.
Like from
and
Ghostbusters and everything?
They were
it's amazing.
They were a kind of a startup. They ended up becoming a very successful label, but at the time, every other label was like who? And there was Roadrunner Records who was trying to sign us.
I remember hearing about them.
But Roadrunner...
They're not around anymore either, are they?
No, they got bought out by Warner, so it's now Warner Music. But like Roadrunner was like kind of like one of the big labels to be on, and they had the cachet, but their deal was terrible. And they were like, no one's going to give you that deal. And then the second that we signed the deal with Sumerian, they're like, okay, where can we get you? Because I was like, look, Sumerian, you're great. You're only great in the States. We're only signing. We're not doing in perpetuity in the universe. We're doing a licensing deal in North America.
Yeah.
So we kind of narrowed that down a tad. But then we did different deals with different territories because I was like, okay, Roadrunner, you're actually good overseas. We'll do whatever. We have a label for Canada and one for Japan. And that's how that all sort of came together. It was patience, and it was kind of knowing what we wanted. Like we knew exactly what we wanted out of our record deal, and we would not accept anything less than. That's
amazing, and you waited for it.
Absolutely.
I think that's amazing.
And now we own our entire catalog again.
I think this is a testament. I think this is a testament to you, and this is all exactly how it was supposed to work out. When you look backwards on it now, do you see like the little stepping stones of like how it all kind of came together? Yeah,
but it also makes me be like, don't ever start a band because there's so much luck, so many little.
Yeah, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that.
There was no big break. There was no big break at any point. Anything that even seemed like a big break was just another little step. And as you said, it's all just little stepping stones. And I'm like, it took so many stepping stones, just kind of pointing all in the right direction. Like that's luck. Like that I could never recreate. If I had to start a band from scratch, I wouldn't. I would just do something else because I understand how much of it was just good fortune and being in the right place at the right time. Like being at a point where like I could get my music out there on forums. People are like, what's the secret? I'm like, whatever I'm going to tell you is irrelevant right now. Like it does not work. They're like, should I focus more on social media promotion? I'm like, yeah, everyone does that. That's not going to make you unique anymore. That is just a baseline requirement.
That's part of it now, yeah.
Now you need to find out what's the thing that other bands are not doing. And when I was doing it, I wasn't doing it strategically. I was just like, oh, I'm talking to a bunch of nerds about nerdy stuff. Might as well post my music, In the same way that like, we're at a car meet. You want to drive my car, make a YouTube video about it or whatever. It's not because you're like, oh, we're going to take over the world with our channel. It's like, no, it's just some fun with my friends,
Yeah.
Like the impetus for all this stuff was very just sort of genuine and really just about being a nerd,
And I say again, that's why I feel like it worked. I really do. Staying true to yourself and just whatever that thing is, when you're watering the right plant inside you, whatever that thing is, what's the Tomorrowland? Feed the right wolf or whatever.
Feed the right wolf.
Fear doesn't seem like it's a big thing for you. Did you have to like conquer fear at some point in your life or anything like that?
Well, the fear was like going to school. Like it was like relief. Like
once you got out of that shit, and then maybe a little bit when you were posting your songs, but you did it, so it wasn't a problem.
It never felt like work. It felt like what I was supposed to be doing.